In A History of Italian Cinema, Peter Bonalard referred to movie about mafia as a real representation of criminal issue. There are different representative approaches to portray the mafia, which we can observe to comparison between the escort and the consequence of love. The escort, directed by Ricky Tognazzi, opened in Sicily on the assassination of a judge and his bodyguard, which made the protection of the newly replaced judge urgent. Dr. Miriam Rutenberg argued that director Tognazzi represents the power of the mafia to portraying the problematic struggle the judge and his guard have to face. They are always under mafia threat aimed at their family, some of which threats also come directly from inside the law enforcement. We can see the extent of the threat from the mafia at the scene when the judge has dinner with his guard. The line delivered in the scene intensifies the dire situations as the camera slowly zooms in on the judge's face, revealing his serious expression. The monologue in this scene managed to portray the obstacle the judge has to face when attempting to deal with Cosa Nostra, and his only trusted allies are his guard, of which he failed to protect from time to time, as one of them eventually got assassinated. Later on, Tognazzi portrayed the mafia threat more in a scene when the judge convinced his partner to continue on the case. As the conversation carried on, the camera cut back and forth between both characters. The conversation emphasized on how even the Cosa Nostra threatened the administrative agency. The influence of the mafia to corrupt politicians climaxed in the final scene when the judge gets a transfer. As the camera focused on the judge standing between his guard before departure, the scene provoked a sense of hopelessness. The protagonist failed to criminalize the Cosa Nostra because of the influence of the mafia. In some sense, the representation of the mafia is physically invisible, but conveys a sense of backstage influence on the political world. By representing the struggle of law enforcement, the director conveys the immense power the mafia possesses. But also, Diana Webb and Marco Armenta indicate that the movie is also a fight against mafia, to drawing attention to the difficulties the law enforcement faces. Unlike the escort focus on the police, the consequence of love concentrates on the middleman of the mafia organization. The movie is about drug-addicted Tita, whom the mafia compels to transport money to a Swiss bank. Dr. Afio Leola points out that the movie stands out from others and it portrays little to none of the violence seen in the genre. Instead, it delves deep into the psychology of character, which helps to convey the influence of the mafia. Dr. Kilboyne pointed out that in the scene when Tita faced two assassins, the appearance of both the killers strikes fear into Tita's expression. The camera in this scene remains still but slowly focused on Tita's stunned and somewhat fearful expression. This scene conveys a slight fear of the mafia upon their appearance, let alone knowing the real business behind. Tita himself also portrayed the fear for the mafia. In a scene when Tita stole $100,000 from the mafia, he allegedly lied in order not to get exposed. The Swiss banker, who know and fear the mafia, have to accept the absence of $100,000, hoping not to disrespect the organization. The scene captured the invisible influence the mafia has on the financial system out of their ability to spread fear. Nevertheless, even Tita himself is afraid of the mafia. The middleman has to go through difficulties and struggle no less than the law enforcement in the escort. In the last scene, even though Tita says he's not scared, he will still observe his fear toward the mafia. Overall, the two both represent the power and influence of the mafia, but from different stylistic approaches. One focuses on the law enforcement personnel, while the other concentrates on mafia's middlemen. Here, you can find my bibliography.